Well, hey there, and welcome to the Homer Hangout. I hope you're doing well. It is Friday. We've got a lot to cover as always today. We're going to be talking about Arcade Idol. We're going to have a second part of the playbook. It's actually going to be split into a few sections as I was running through it. It's a bit of a beast, so I don't want to rush too much and cram it all into one stream. So we're going to split it out probably into, well, quite a few parts, I think. So we've got all that today. Of course, if you want to join me throughout the week over on the Discord, do come and say hello. A link is in the description. And yeah, that is pretty much it for me on the housekeeping. Good to see everyone in the chat. What is up, Colette? What is up, Addy? What is up, Udall? What is up, Cargard? What is up, everybody? Good to see you here. So we're going to jump straight into things today. We're going to talk about some monetization. Well, let's just get straight into it. And yeah, let's go. So what we got? We have got the Arcade Idol Part 2. Like I said, it's going to be Part 2A, really. Zymora, good to see you here. And yeah, we are going to go over some monetization drivers through the Arcade Idol. And I really want this to be conversational this week because it's really open in terms of scope, Arcade Idol, which is why it's such an exciting genre. And as you'll discover as we go on today, we can open up and unlock a ton of opportunities for monetization loops, something that is super, super important within your games and for you to be baking in to your game design. And that's what we're really talking about today. More of game design elements of things to consider practically when considering the sort of theme you're going for, especially today. Hamza, what is up? What metrics need to be accepted at Homer? You can test any games within Homer. The metrics are fluid. We look at various KPIs, quality of game, all sorts of things. So the best way to get started is to load your game onto Homer Lab. You'll find a link to that in the description of this video. Fulfill all the requirements of the testing and we will pay to test your game, and that is where it all begins for you. So don't worry about too much about the requirements and the metrics and all of that kind of stuff. Test your game and we'll go from there. Alrighty, so that's what we've got lined up for today. Thanks for your question, keep them coming. Is one CPI enough? If you're talking $1, then we would like to see below that, as would anyone else. But if you've got crazy play time and all the rest of it, we can potentially work towards getting that down for you. But like I said, test the game. That's the best thing. 30-cent CPI, says Banneker, is a must. Well, yeah, quite. So listen, we can bang on about all the numbers all we like, but it doesn't make any difference unless you have tested your game and put some skin in the game. Make sense? So test it out and we'll see what happens. All right, let's jump into it. So part 2A, I'm calling this today, monetization loops within the games. And we're going to kick off today with the features that drive the monetization within Arcade Idol. So time is money, that age-old saying, but it really is important when we look at a lot of hybrid casual, both light and deep and casual games, that players are typically happy to watch videos and occasionally spend on in-app purchases to reduce money. To reduce the time they have to wait. It's kind of pay to win, but most of these games are not multiplayer, so the pay to win doesn't really come into it also so much because you're playing against yourself or the game essentially. But yeah, these are the time sort of skips are super powerful in Arcade Idol, and everything really revolves around that in terms of gathering resources and speeding up production and all that kind of stuff. So your players are always waiting for resources. You always need the next thing. And this is where the monetization loops come in full force. And there is a myriad of different ways you can go about doing this, and that's what we're going to start to cover. Carrying on from our first part where we looked at all the different game design elements. So if you haven't seen that video yet, highly recommend you should go and watch that one first, so you have a bit of a better understanding what we're talking about today. But yeah, essentially, your players will be happy to watch a skip video to save themselves time or double or triple their increase of their resources reward and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to be concentrating on today. It is a balancing act, as with most things within your game, either difficulty or economy based. But it's funny. There's a thing called dark design patterns, which I found super interesting. And as I mentioned on the slide here, it's not as malicious as it sounds, but there are tactics that you can employ as a designer to point them in the direction of monetization, in terms of just don't give them enough of such and such of a resource, or make it a long wait time, which will then force the player to watch that video or buy that in-app purchase. So I hope that all makes sense so far. We do want to cause some negative experience within the game, but that's where the balancing act comes in, where we're finding that kicker point where it's not too annoying that people bail, to the point we go, oh, okay, that sounds like a fair exchange of value for 30-second video to either skip some time or multiply the resources. All right, before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about the main player profiles that we've touched on quite a few times over the last few weeks on the channel, and I want to drive this home. So if you've seen this before, apologies, but this is part of the playbook, so that's why I've included it, and we'll talk a little bit more of why this is important for Arcade Idol. Jilly says watching video fits well with the want it now players. That's exactly right. So the 4 player profiles, widely and commonly known throughout the industry, is from Dr. Bartle, way back when, and these are the key profiles that have been identified for players. Now, there are different personas, where other companies have created a more robust set of profiles, probably 6 or 8 we typically see, and those are valid too. But this, to keep it nice and easy, we concentrate on these 4, and these are your main primary target. Socializers, driven by social features, community and playing with friends. Explorers, where they want to go to every corner of the game. They want to unturn every stone. They want to find new discoveries, and they'll search every single bit of your game map. The achievers, determined to complete the game, motivated by leaderboards and essentially getting all the in-game achievements that you set for them. I think I said before, I fit somewhere in here, the 3-star. Can't go to the next level without getting those 3 stars. So I fit into the achiever profile. And we have the killers, which are essentially they want to win at all costs. They don't care how. They want to be the best at it. They want to be number 1, and they don't really care how they get there. So what has this all got to do with Arcade Idol? I hear you shout now. Shush, shush, we're getting there. Socializers and killers we can almost get rid of in terms of our Arcade Idol, because the social aspect is pretty non-existent for Arcade Idol. I don't recall there being a social aspect in any Arcade Idol game. And it's not a sort of multiplayer type affair that we'd see socializers be more prevalent in other genres. Now, it could well be that opens up an opportunity here, if you can figure out maybe to make a social Arcade Idol. That could be next level stuff. But again, this is just to agitate and challenge your way of thinking, all of the things that we do here on a Friday. So then doesn't necessarily mean we're right or wrong, but is there a gap there? And same goes for killers. It's not really appropriate for that profile to be drawn to an arcade idol. However, again, there might be a twist that you can think maybe we're seeing a few more battles in the arcade idols that were never a thing 18 months ago, I'd say. So maybe there's a twist on the killer aspect that you could weave into an arcade idol, a typical arcade idol game that we're talking about. So we really just worried about, well, not worried, we more want to focus on the explorers and the achievers and meet their requirements of exploration and discovery and collection. All right, so there we go. Now let's have a look at the buy-in behavior, because this is about monetization. So we know the sort of we know the types of players that we're looking to capture within this genre who'll be drawn to it. And let's have a quick look at the buyer behavior that we want to tie these personas into. Now this, we'll round it up in a minute, and I promise it will make sense. So the hook, this is your first conversion. This is, how do I get the player to change their mind from saying, oh, I'm never going to spend any money in a mobile game. Poof. What sort of deal and what offer can you give them, or what pinch point can you create to make it, unbelievable, alluring to convert that first person? And it's historically the hardest to do, to tip them over the edge, to put their hand in their pocket. It's the same throughout all genres. The first purchase is the hardest to get, and there's all sorts of tactics you can employ to do this, and some of that we're going to be covering throughout this playbook. But this is the one that you want to, the hook. What is that thing that's going to tip them over the edge, saying, I'm never going to spend any money, and take my money, I can't bear it. It's so generous and alluring that I'm gonna spend the monies. The habit of the players, once they've made that first purchase, is the repeated spend. Wow, that was weird. Is the repeated spend, and these will help them. Once they've done it once, they go, okay, that was valuable and worth my money. I'm going to do it again. And that is really where the habit forms in. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm in. And then the last one, which is really where your whales will sit, this is more of the hobbyist, and they're happy to spend the money. They will buy all sorts of in-app purchases consistently, and there's really no limit to what you can monetize these players with. These are the people, if you kind of put these $99 VIPs on, and they'll do it because they can and they want to, and it's part of their daily routine, and that's where the habit forms. So to sort of circle back around here, when we're looking at the personas and the buyer's behavior, our goal as the designer is to marry all this stuff up together. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to look at the comments in just a second. So if you've got any comments before we move on, please do let me know. Because I think this is really important, and we want to make sure that we're always thinking about who is playing our game, who is drawn to it, and how can we manipulate their spending habits, and almost, I want to say, trick them into buying, which is not accurate and not a nice way of putting it. But it's how can we persuade them as game designers to craft systems and offers to persuade them to spend their money and make our game profitable. All right, I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat here. What is up, Chris? Good to see you. Zymora, happy Friday indeed. Happy Friday. Addy says also soft misclicks or framing the free button between ads, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't hurt the player. Generally, UX is key as well. Yeah, the user experience is key. I know what you mean about the button placement. That's kind of sneaky deaky. A lot of the time, I don't really think that's typically intended, Addy. If I'm honest, it's normally a bit of a byproduct of stuff. But yeah, that is legit, I guess. Udall, my type is underachiever. Oh my goodness. And Jilly says, I suppose the players will be more likely to repeat spend if the first offer is proved to be of good quality and fair. Now, there you go. Jilly's just smashed it there. It's that fair exchange of value, and that could be an in-app purchase and a rewarded video. And we'll go on to a little bit more throughout this series of when it's right to put an in-app purchase and when it's better to put a rewarded video. There's data behind that. A lot of it is actual common sense, and it's what we want as the game designer to help our player at any particular time and make the right choice of offer to them, the right choice at the right time. Well done, Jules, that's a great shout. Alrighty, so here we're going to go through the various elements that we spoke of in the first part of this playbook. I've got to have a drink. Excuse me. Okay. And this is what we were just, I was just saying, like, so identifying the key audiences, marrying them up with their player behavior, and how do we get them to buy in-app purchases, either consumable, non-consumables, or rewarded videos. The 8 core elements for monetization. This is why I've split it up into more sections than I was intending, because as I started going through this, it's just vast. And I didn't want to sort of make this lightweight. I wanted to go through it relatively deep and ensure that we explore a lot of the opportunities there are for each of these sections. Now, a lot of them do dovetail into each other. A lot of them are integral to themselves and depending on this thing or that thing. So there could be a player upgrade that is, completely linked to a workstation, or how the player will get resources depending if they need to unlock this area or the world. So it's all intertwined and all fits nicely together, which is what we're aiming for. But I've done my best today to try and isolate the environmental and world type monetization, which surprisingly there was more than what I thought. I didn't think there was a lot of ways that you could monetize the actual world that you play in, but as it turns out, as I was looking further into it, I think there's a fair amount. So let's just dive in. Do get your questions in as we go, and let's look at designing worlds. Okay, so regardless of your concept or your theme, and please do let me know if you're thinking about any type of theme, or you built one of these games before, or you're trying to think of something to do. Put them in the chat and we'll discuss it today. But regardless of what theme you choose, whether it's spaceships or pirates, expansion in Arcade Idle is kind of the bread and butter of it. It really is a basic requirement of an Arcade Idle, and you'll see it in pretty much every single one that you'll ever play. So expanding the core world, this is ultimately, I'm just trying to think of how to say it because it's really difficult without spilling onto other areas, but let's talk about the design of it first. So when we unlock different areas. We've got Street Dude here from Say Games. You can see how it's really clear that the world has stopped at that particular point, and they've done a particular nice job of the way that the world populates once you have enough resources to unlock it. You'll find padlocks on other ones. You'll find areas that are grayed out or shadowed out. You'll find other ones that you just can't see, like this one. And we can monetize this in a way that we need resources to unlock it. So it's one of these ones that kind of sits in the middle of resources and environment. But I think for this one here, expansion, I think it's worth mentioning that on the design sort of things, you want to work out how are you going to hide what's coming next to create the intrigue, and again tap into the the explorer sort of persona. How can you design it in a way that it expands but is hidden, and it makes the player want to carry on and obviously explore more and all the rest of it. The other thing about expanding your world is, are you going to add anything else? Say Games does a really good job here of building. They've got a few different worlds in their game, but as you go further, as you unlock the stages, they all sort of loop around to make one big area. It's a very clever map system they've got in this one. But yeah, so expansion of your core level is pretty much critical stuff. I've got some questions here. Just want to get to them so I don't miss them. Is it okay to borrow some of these elements to monetize a game more intended for killers, like hybrid based on combat with side idle arcade elements? So I think it depends, really. We want to make sure that we really head towards building the game for that particular type of person. If you can udall, but if I'm making a game targeting the killer profile, I want to make sure that I'm satisfying the killer profile, right? And I think the problem is, a lot of the time we try and please all of those profiles without, and it dilutes it somewhat. Does that make sense? So of course it's okay to borrow some elements, and you should sprinkle and pepper some in, but you really want to, if you're in the mood for a shoot 'em up, you don't want to play an arcade idle game that's got a bit of a shoot 'em up in it. You want to play a shoot 'em up. So I think you need to be careful of that. But sure, experiment with some of that kind of stuff. But I think it's important not to dilute your main core game that you're going for. Otherwise, you end up, by going for everyone, you hit no one, kind of thing. Ferdor says, "Is Pizza Ready idle arcade?" It is an arcade idle, yes, Ferdor. That's exactly right. Addy just mentioned, answered that as well. They do prestige like Burger Pleased. We'll go on to prestige in a moment, where you can see it grayed out. All right, so that's expanding the world. Be mindful of the way you design the opening up of new areas. This one's particularly nice. There's a lot of them that do it really well. All right, nice one. All right, so that is the expansion of the core world. All right, let's go on to adding and restoring buildings. Now, this is part of the world, of course, but it can kind of be also considered into the sort of upgrading type realm as well, which is why it's so difficult to split all this up. But this is how I've done it, and I think it works well. So we're looking at King or Fail from Say Games again here. You'll see the unlocking of all the different things coming in here. And what I think is really nice about this one, it's so clear of what's happening. All of the areas are literally bordered off. And you can see here that the each area takes amount of resources to unlock them. Either whatever currency that they're using in the game, they've got coins and that. So where does this come in terms of the monetization? Well, again, there's triggers here. You have to go and collect the resources. So there's resources monetization here, and I know it's kind of loose, and we'll scroll past this one pretty quick, but it's worth mentioning here because as you go on further, and we unlock, what do they unlock here? Some cherry bush or something, a berry bush for 10. If that then costs 100, and it takes you a whole lot of grind to get that amount, we can then start introducing some um, elements to get some pick up 150 blocks for a rewarded video, and typically we would see that popping next to the thing we're trying to upgrade. So this one's a little bit early on, but we just like leave this one parked here for now because it does have a place here, and as we'll move through, it will become more clear. All right, so I'm going to skip past that one really quick. So this one is unlocking new resources and area. So that one where we're adding and restoring is different because this one here is when we're unlocking new parts of the map. We then can introduce more resources into the game, and we can add different areas to create interest as well. So we're looking at Burger Please here. You can see us, we're just about to unlock this new drive-through section that unlocks a new element and also more machines or generators and stuff like that. In terms of monetization, again, they're all taking currency. So this is a more just to show you the sort of the depth and the levels that we're going through to build up as we get further along. It will make sense in a moment of please, but I need to premise this to make sure we understand of all the different areas in the environmental stuff. All right, and that might be a good time to get to another question here. Can Arcade Idle work if it isn't about creating and expanding worlds? Like, what if it's about escaping from a world? I mean, does it still fit in the bracket of these games of which we're talking about today? I think when you're you can add a story into this sort of area. I think you're overthinking it is my gut shot on this one. Sure, it depends what you have to do. You could have a reverse Arcade Idol. Well, if you're trying to escape, I don't know. I mean, that's a bonkers question, if I'm honest. I think definitely. I think you can do anything, and you don't have to pigeonhole the genre too tightly. We are just building up to explain some of the stuff of how these games work. We went through the definitions last time, but this is the part of how we go about monetizing them. I hope this is making sense, Udall. I wouldn't worry about if it fits into the bracket, but if it could work if you're escaping out of somewhere, sure. Banneker says one of our biggest hurdles is to overcome CPI. We can have an amazing game, but it's space themed. It will fail. Besides graphics, what are the most relevant themes currently? That's a great question. What are the most relevant themes currently? Well, to keep this content evergreen, that's going to be, I'm a little reluctant to say. I mean, Say Games have done a massive push on the hotel. I think, generally speaking, the most relatable themes are always going to win out. You know, I think it's more important to have a look at what games are doing well and what games have been around for a long time. I think when it comes to theme, Burger Please, from Supercent here, has done so well, and there has been hundreds, if not thousands, of burger themed games. The issue is that they've made a super great game with a really relatable theme. If we on the last playbook we looked at part one, we looked at Pizza Ready, which I wrongly named Pizza Please. It's Pizza Ready, which is essentially the same source code on the face of it, and the pizza one didn't work so well, but the burger one has. So it's very difficult to isolate any particular theme, Banneker. I think you need to make a judgment yourself. Everybody, I think here's my take on this. I think everybody, a little part of everybody, would like to play a game where they build their own burger restaurant because you understand it. You know, with space, it's very difficult because it's so random. Is farming still saturated? And that's a better question. If I'm honest, is farming saturated? I think it depends. I mean, farming and cooking have got to be the two biggest themes out there. I think what take could you put on farming that maybe you could niche down on a little bit? Maybe I think a generic farming game would be difficult, personally. But maybe have we? Is any? It's always crops, isn't it? We always see the carrots and the sweet corn. Is there one with animals? I don't know if there's an animal based farming game, or something like that. I don't know. You're asking the $1,000,000 question. I think done well, any game can succeed. I wish I had a better answer for you, Banneker. But let's discuss this more on the Discord later on. I would love to get into that and see what's in the charts that is going well right now. All right. Addy asked, do you think more puzzle elements in Arcade Idol could work? Grind to unlock the puzzle to complete the puzzle to expand. So not very puzzle heavy, but enough to generate engagement. I think that's a great idea, Addy. I'm going to go on to mini games and stuff in a minute. But yeah, remind me of that question at the end, and we'll go through it again. Just want to make sure Supercent is a pub with great potential. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. They've done that. They had a lot of big games out anyway. You do. I get anxious playing Pizza Ready. I feel like I'm missing a lot of opportunities and things are running too fast. Okay. All right. So that is unlocking new resources and areas. All right. Side quests and mini games, which is basically what Addy was just talking about, like little puzzles. And interestingly, in Dining Legend, aside from just typically running up to one of the machines, we go in and we have to flip the burgers on a really simple gamification mechanic here of the little slider there, which I thought was really kind of cool. So I'm classing this as environmental because it will depend on the type of theme that you choose to do. This could probably be put inside the generators part, but I put it in here because I think it's environmental in terms of what you choose for your theme can dictate exactly what you do here. So if we had a farming one, potentially we could be what could we do? We could be making flour or something. So you go and harvest the wheat, you take it to the mill, and then when you hit the mill, you have to do some sort of mechanic to start grinding the flour, something like that, which I feel is environmental as well as resources. I know it's kind of confusing, this one, but we're gonna move on because it will become clear in a moment, I promise. All right, so this is where we unlock new worlds and areas. Typically a map system. Someone mentioned about prestige in the chat there, which I want to quickly have a look at. I think it was Addy or Banneker. I just want to make sure I don't miss that because that was a cool question. If you mention that, please help me out and paste it again in the chat for me. So yeah, this is where we're unlocking new resources. Unlocking new world, which then opens up a whole ton of resources to change. We're looking at aquarium land on the map here, which are really good distinctions where we're building different aquariums. But in something like My Little Universe from Say Games, the different planets have different resources. Now, what I wanted to put on here was I'm not a big fan of prestige at all, because I think it makes. I think the reset button is a really. I don't think it's a positive experience for players typically. I have played games with the prestige and I have started over again, but a lot of the time once I get to a level and I have to reset, I just think, oh, do I really want to go through that all again? So there's a couple of things we can do rather than the prestige system. We can ensure that everything that we built up previous, if we're going to leave that behind and move on to a new world, um, that some of those resources actually are needed to progress in the next world. There's a couple of games that do this very well. One is Rise of Cultures by Inno Labs. Inno Games, Inno Labs. Rise of Cultures, and they have various different worlds. It's not an arcade idle, it's a casual builder game. But as you build up their different worlds in that game, you need some resources from map A to complete stuff on map B. So they interchange with each other to make all the work that you've done on the first world important for the second world, and therefore worth revisiting it and creating more. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see that chat. They do prestige like Burger Please. Um, yeah, the My Perfect Hotel have a really interesting system where you generate tickets that you carry forward, and that's kind of the system I'm talking about because it makes all the work you've done previously worthwhile. So that's why I say avoid prestige where you can. Building cross-world systems or a cross-world currency or something like that. So whilst you are essentially starting over, everything you've done so far, you still have that feeling of progression. Make sense? All right, just before we get on to the last bit here, I will take your more questions. It was that, Addy. Thank you. Does Space Rockets themes work good in Arcade Idol? It can do. I mean, we do have Life Bubble, which is essentially a space theme. I would avoid space. You go and look at the top 200 and see how many space games there are. They just don't tend to do well on mobile. But you might be the exception of the rule, but I would typically avoid doing space themes. They're very hard to crack, those ones. And Yudel said, pristine means like how in farmland we begin from zero in the next world. That's exactly what prestige is. You essentially max out all your workers, all your machines, all of everything. Then it says go to the next one, and then you start again. I don't think that's I think that's a short-sighted system, personally. Crossworld rather than prestige for me any day, says Jules. Much more satisfying. Yeah, exactly. So imagine let's take Aquarium Land here, and I'm not sure if it's the case. You see our first aquarium there with the goldfish with the 1 star above his head. Once we've completed that, we'll be able to go to the next one. One currency from that world at least should be used or should be useful for the second world. And that means you don't feel like you're starting again. You feel like everything that you've done has meaning to carry over. And like I said, Rise of Cultures is the perfect example of this, where you have quests on other worlds where you need resources from previous worlds to complete quests and stuff. And that way you actually go back and grind a little bit in the previous world that you've completed, because they're now important enough. All right. Space is always crap on Steam as well. It's always crowded. Yeah, I would recommend against Space. All right, let's get into a little bit more juicy stuff here. Um, let's look at the theme, environment, and story, and put all of this stuff into practice, which I know you're probably busting from. Yes, Aquarium Land is very mature, and there's tons. There's tons in this game, and it's really quite amazing. And I can assure you, there's more coming, which I'm not able to share with you, but it's massively impressive. So I've highlighted some of the stuff here, and this is where the environment stuff is really really comes into its own. So depending on the theme or your story, in Aquarium Land they introduce pets, and the best thing about this here is that they got the little kennel. You got 4 pets to choose from, and the first one you get for free. Try it for an hour. So this is this is the true monetization loops we're getting into now. Real world practical examples. So try before you buy mentality here. Give it to them for an hour. It lets them see how beneficial it is to them, how cool it is, and then the next time that they go and visit that kennel to get their pet, we whack them with a purchase. Okay, makes sense? So various prices there. You could, in theory, and this is subject to A/B testing all the time, this one seems more appropriate. Rather than give the player the opportunity to have it for 15 minutes for a rewarded video, you get them playing with the pet for an hour for free, for nothing, and then they're totally hooked and they want to have it, full stop. So I thought this is a really good example of how this is an environmental addition or a story or narrative based addition for the monetization. And this is where it really, the rubber meets the road, as they say. This is a really bespoke to Aquarium Land, but think about how you could do this in any other type of theme. Udall says, if you could transport yourself into an arcade idle world, which game would you choose? Me? I don't know. I'll answer that in the end. I've got to get through this because we're running out of time and I don't want to rush it. I don't know. I'm into. I like My Perfect Hotel right now. I'd do a restaurant one. I think. There you go. I'd be restaurant tycoon type stuff. So that's the pets. That's a really good one. So great monetization tip. Give it to them for an hour rather than hide it behind a rewarded video, which some players might not choose to do because they don't know the value. Give it the value for an hour. Prove how valuable it is and how fun it is. And then there's your in-app purchase. There's your hook and your conversion, right? The second one here, again, is bonus resources on the land, depending on the theme. You could have all sorts of things here. We see this is very common. This one's slightly a little bit different in terms of it's a little bit more animated than the ones we typically see. I've got to move this over a little bit here. There we go. So a fish bundle, and for this one it's more appropriate to have a rewarded video because it spawns up every so often. You get the bonus fish, so you kind of fill your coffers without having to fish in Aquarium Land, and you get 4 gems as well, which is a rare resource in the game. This works really well for rewarded video because it's just like, sure, would I pay for this? How would that work in terms of the game system for an in-app purchase? It wouldn't make sense. So these are like snackable bonus that you can pick up and the player will just like on a whim just go, yeah, sure, I'll do that, sounds like a good idea. Maybe you'll need a few gems for something else. This seems like a good way of doing it. Again, this is exchanging time for the in-game content. All right, so that one's a really nice one. The other environmental one here, and I've named it environmental rewards because this will truly be specific to the theme that you're using. In Aquarium Land, we have you dive for shells that are located throughout the main fishing pool here. You need 2 of them to complete, so it's a gamification again. So you find 2 of these shells, and when you collect the second one, you get the pearl. But look, you can open it up for a rewarded video. So it gives you a ton of cash. So very, very generous. Nearly 5,000 in cash. That is a big currency within the game. So you play to find them, and the other one there, it's tapping into that explorer again. They found the second one, but now they've got it. They might as well watch a video to get the reward for finding and diving for it and collecting the 2 of the mini game type area. Really powerful, this one. And again, you could have this, you could literally have this in any type of game. I know in Dreamdale, you have a little shovel and you dig up artifacts. It's very much the same system, and I think it's a really cool environmental one. This, you can add anything into any theme as a bonus and kind of plug it on top to make it variable, and without ruining your core economy. So I think that one's really great. And of course, we have the VIP subscription area now, which is actually built into the map. So you can see there, we have the sort of mermaid on the lifeguard post there, built into the map itself. It's not a button on the UI, although there is one, but that is like baked into the environment itself. And I think this is really nice when we look at the monetization types of things, just like the pet one. It's not available by the GUI, built into the environment that you run up and interact with, and learn what it is by playing the game. And I think it's really nice in Arcade Idol, where this is very much inbuilt to the whole game. So you could think for I don't know, I'm going to make something up. It's probably already been done, but I think in the Mafia type Arcade Idol, there's phone boxes that you run into and stuff like that. Or think about the theme. It'd be really relevant to the theme that you're building. But again, it opens up a great way to expose, especially to your whales, how they can, spend their money. All right, let's go a little bit more, and then we'll go all out on questions for the last bit. So, oops, wrong button. Genius. All right, so here we go. So, this has got so far in Aquarium Land. Again, very bespoke to this, but this is a secret area within Aquarium Land that you go around and you find the key for. And you can see in the first one there, we're unlocking this secret area, which is really dialing in to both the explorer persona and the achievers. They want to get all the secrets, they want to explore, they found all the keys. Now, once they've unlocked that, they then have to swim past these whales to collect the prize. And if they fail, like you'll see me expertly fail on the first GIF here, you get thrown out of the secret area, and then you can unlock it again for watching a video, which is genius. So again, it's that monetization driver to think about, okay, instead of leaving it open or put it on a timer, let the player do it again. If they want to watch a video, they can go straight back in. And this is why the arcade idol is so powerful for monetization loops, because there's just so many opportunities. It's actually crazy. And you can see on the second one, when I went in for watch the video, I actually did it that time. And if we'll just wait for that to finish, and we're looking at the revisit for rewarded video section here, we get to the prize pool, and I struggle. I couldn't catch this fish because I'm a potato. But then that added a brand new element to Aquarium Land, which is absolutely epic. So it then takes us into the secret aquarium content, which is a whole new section, a side quest, a side game off Aquarium Land, which is completely ring fenced to its own economy. It's ring fenced to its own monetization system. However, you can still interact with the main game to influence how you progress in it, which is absolutely brilliant. So we've got our build your own fish tank inside here, with or build your own secret aquarium, which is the team done a great job here. But you can see down on the GUI here, we have the feeding mechanism, which is very popular in aquarium games. Every half an hour, you'll get a free feed. Which means you can come back, keep your fish alive, and build up the retention that we're really looking for. And along the side there, we've got fish that we can buy through the diamonds. Again, remember on the last slide, we had the diving or watching the unlocking the pearls for a video. We got cash and some of these diamonds that we can spend here for our secret aquarium, amongst other things. And we have some decorations here. So a really in-depth sub-game, mini-game system within Aquarium Land. And I think this really exposes the monetization of the environmental side of things. This is one of 8 sections that we've touched on today, which is why I said it's quite robust in how much stuff goes into this. But these last 2 slides with the examples of the monetization triggers, I think it's really telling, and it's really good example, Aquarium Land, just how you could add stuff into your game and all of it is cohesive and makes sense. So let's go to some questions. I hope that all makes sense. Let me know if you like this and you want to do the next part where we're going to be looking at the player, which is absolutely huge. Do hit the like button and let me know in the comments if you want to see the next part. That would be much appreciated. But I want to get to some of your comments now, and I'd love to come up with see what you guys think about the themes and stuff. So yeah, do hit the like if you want to see the next part, and we're going to go super deep on all of this. And I'm going to get to some of the questions. So, I think I would do, you to ask about which one would I build. Personally, I would transport myself into a restaurant type thing. I've always enjoyed those games. It has a lot of scope where you can design restaurants, you can get in the kitchen and build menus and cook food. I think there's a lot of scope for that. So that's what I would do. At which stage of the development should we submit our game? Are you looking for more? Are you looking more into an idea mechanic or a game polish? Should we submit a prototype with complete mechanics and minimal graphics? Zymora Studio, great to see you here. I would. We've done plenty of streams on this, and head on inside the academy. We got a lot of information about this. You really are looking for a prototype. Doesn't have to be a full-fledged game, but you want a good amount of playtime. You want to make the best game and the best. You want to make a vertical slice of your best game. That's basically it, and we will test it for you. Do hit me up on the Discord if you've got any more questions, but we've got a lot of content covering that on different streams, and check out the channel. Are you only after Unity games? Like Voodoo, Fedora, yes, we only accept Unity, as do most of the publishers at the moment. Secret area is genius. Fishing is fishing is hard. My goodness, that was a struggle bus. That was. Nice one, Eddie. Keep it up as always. Like the video, good man. Yeah, this is super interesting. That first one, it was difficult. When we start going into the player, which I'd love to make for you guys, it just goes on and on and on. And the thing is, once we get down to that part, I will then get to the team to share some numbers. Like we added this one in, and this, rose RVs up by 15% and stuff like that. But I can only do it with your support, guys, and that's hit the like, and that's what does it. Um, which engine do you prefer games to be made in? Should we start a new game or we transition? Zymora, Unity for now for sure. Hamza says my game is getting 2.5 playtime, 2.5 playtime and 31 day one retention, but CPI is stuck at 7. Hamza, are you testing with us on that? If you're not, do hit me up on the Discord. I'd like to see a video of that. If you're not testing with us, those numbers look pretty good to me. So depending on what type of game, we can maybe test it for you and see what we can do with the CPI and everything else. What about setting sail into the sea? Well, there is that. Yeah, maybe. You could do a boat one. I don't think we've seen a boat one. So, got any more questions about this? I think this is why I'm super pumped about Arcade Idol, because it's such. There's so many ways you can go with it. I'm feeling excited talking about it. I've got to be honest with you, because you can just do so many things, and I love that the team. Just going to flick back to that. I love that what the team have done on Aquarium Land. It's just incredible, and it's just so fitting, and it all works. It's such a vast game. I've got some really exciting news coming about this game in the next 2 weeks as well. So be sure to keep an eye out on the channel. There's reason to subscribe for you. I think that's it's genius, and there's actually I didn't include it on this, but you can see on the middle secret aquarium content there. It's got a separate shop here, so there's in-app purchases for fish food, as well as these decorations and the fish themselves. So it's a whole separate economy. It's a really quite amazing what the team have done here, and they've got some really exciting updates for that. So what do we think? How does Arcade Idol sound once we've explored? And again, this is just the environmental core elements of the monetization here. I thought this would take up quite a bit of time. We've gone for an hour, and I have 8 sections on the monetization drivers, not to mention the shop best practices that is coming as well, which is pretty awesome, which I'd love to go through as well. So do hit the like button. Let me know that you're enjoying this, and we can carry on. The one last thing, if there's no more questions, don't forget to hit me up over on the Discord throughout the week, posting some cool stuff on there. Great to see some activity over there. If you want some feedback for your game, head on over there and post a video. Don't try to avoid posting links to people to download your games. It's so difficult. I know it's not the same, but you can learn a hell of a lot from watching a video. And better still, if you want some feedback on your game, post your CPI video. Use that as a testing ground for your CPI video, because if we don't understand what the game is, or it doesn't look exciting enough, you're getting early feedback before you even go into test, which I think is amazing. All right, let's just see what came in there. There were many hooks like this on Farmland also, which eventually convert you into a regular spender ad watcher. Exactly. So all of these tactics can be applied to any theme for the most part. It's actually, these are meant to challenge you and get you to look at what you're building, especially if you're building Arcade Idol, of course. But can you employ some of these tactics and some of this monetization drivers within the type of game you're building right now? Which I think you shouldn't be scared about these. I mean, go and download Aquarium Land, of course. Check out My Perfect Hotel, which is absolutely crushing, from Say Games. They've been developing that game over the last year. It's a very different beast from what the first version was. What's exciting about that, we didn't talk about the player stuff today because there wasn't time, but a lot of the time there are vehicles that you can watch for rewarded videos to speed your way around the game map, which is huge basically, because running is kind of a laborious task. And there's My Perfect Hotel has done such a great job of implementing loads of different models. They have a unicorn, they have a magic carpet. It's really quite clever. And inside that, you could even go into customize. Imagine if you brought an in-app purchase to have it permanently, then you can then reskin the models. Inside Aquarium Land, we've got a scooter that you can drive around on the land. There's a boat that you can open to have bigger nets. There's a jet ski to go fishing on to make that go faster. It's such a vast options for monetization, which is why they're super profitable. All right, Eddie, you got to go. I got to go as well. Have a great weekend. Thank you for all your input today. Love seeing you in the chat. Chris, what is that? What do people think about splash screens in games? When they start and show the game's title, sometimes it feels a bit old school. I think a simple logo and a loading screen is suffice. I think make them high quality if you're going to add one. I think if you put some branding on it, Chris, I think they up your production value. It's pretty old school, but it's just a flat image typically, isn't it? So, all right, I'm going to go and start and wrap that up. I hope that was interesting for everybody today. Do let me know. Our chat didn't work. I was going to have chat underneath it. Why didn't that work? I just remembered. Don't know what's going on with the chat. I'm going to have to fix that as well. That's a bit annoying. But anyway, so thank you. I'm going to YOLO and see if this works. Okay, that kind of works. Let's put that on there. Well done, Eddie. Thanks for that. Appreciate you. Let's see if we can do that. There we go. All right. So appreciate everybody. Thank Eddie. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Do hit the like button if you want to see the next one. I would appreciate it. Does let me know your vote. I think I'm going to try this as well. Let's see if this works. There we go. It's working. Awesome. All right. So, Udall, I appreciate that. Nice. Thank you. Hopefully we can do the next one. The next one is the biggie because that's the player, and that's going to take me a ton of time to put together. But I think this one, just because it's Arcade Idol, I think it's important as a game designer you explore the different techniques in Arcade Idol because they really does exploit, as we saw today in Aquarium Land, it exploits all these different opportunities, and this is something that you really need to be thinking about when you're building your games. How are you going to monetize it? And how are you going to get your LTV up enough to make it a publishable game? All right. With all that said and done, that is going to go and wrap it up for me for now. We are back next week with the CPI show. We got a corker and Oleg is back then. So do subscribe to be notified of that. And always fun times with Oleg imparting his amazing knowledge on us. So with all that said and done, that is going to go and wrap it up for me for now. Have a good one, guys. Thanks everyone for joining with me. And yeah, I will see you next time around. See you later. Bye-bye.